Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel and to my new studio. If you missed the vlog, I am finally getting settled here in Austin and I finally have a dedicated workspace. I'm really excited to make it a bit more personalized over the next several months and I hope that you guys like seeing it evolve. Today we're going to be doing a sketchbook tour. I've been working on this sketchbook from June of last year to June of this year, and I finally just finished it up with my patrons the other night. I'm really excited to show you that, but before we do that, I had a couple announcements that I wanted to let you guys know about. In addition to resuming the brand by brand series, my awesome patrons just allowed us to restart, that's right, a third season of Color Spotlight. Some of you might remember me saying that we were getting close to this goal, but while I was moving, my patrons completely smashed that goal, and I am really excited to bring back a fan favorite. Right now, my patrons are voting on what colors are going to be included in the third season, and if you want a say in that, you can head on over to Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month supporting the channel, you can have an impact too. If you're watching this video in the future, make sure you check the date down below the video. This poll is only going to be up for about a week before I announce the results to my patrons and then here on the channel as well. The new season will be starting on July 18th if all goes according to plan, so make sure you hit that subscribe button if you'd like to be notified when those videos start up again. The next announcement doesn't directly affect the channel, but it does affect the entire watercolor community, and that is that July is World Watercolor Month. If you've been around this channel for long, you will have remembered me mentioning it in the past. This is an initiative put on by Charlie O'Shields at Gouache during the month of July each year to celebrate watercolor. There are official prompts for this 31-day challenge, but really it's just about you having fun and celebrating watercolor in whatever capacity you want that to be. No matter what you enjoy painting, if you are on social media, use the hashtag World Watercolor Month during July to share your watercolor paintings with the rest of the community. Another component of World Watercolor Month that Charlie works really hard on is that there is a souvenir shop open over on Gouache right now where you can pick up limited edition souvenirs for World Watercolor Month, and those profits are all donated to the Dreaming Zebra Foundation, which is an organization that donates art supplies to children in need. So my work is up there in the form of a sea turtle this year. You guys have seen this guy before, but this is a limited edition bag with World Watercolor Month on the bottom here, and other artists that you know like Angela Fair are in that shop, as well as some really other talented wonderful artists. So if you'd like to pick up anything, there are different types of products there. You can go ahead and check it out. Once again, I'll put the link in the description below. Being an artist ambassador for World Watercolor Month, also any sales that you make in my shop during the month of July, $1 will get donated to the Dreaming Zebra Foundation. I'm going to be doing a very special challenge for World Watercolor Month, so stick around till the end of this video if you want to hear more about it. So you might notice that this desktop isn't quite the same one you're used to seeing in my videos. I usually use a contact paper laminate as the backdrop that makes things kind of light and bright. I'm working on refinishing this table, but I haven't finished it yet, so please excuse me for that. I did intentionally leave these first pages blank because even though in the Honolulu watercolor sketchbook you can paint on these two pages, I just have a lot of anxiety around first pages. I'm sure some of you guys have experienced that too, and I kind of like the crisp look of having a nice white spread. I put the started and end dates over here, and you can see that's just about a year's time. I wanted to get it done inside of a year, but that just was not in the cards. But the first spread I ever did in here was a video here on the channel for my Parasaurolophus study. And this one was the first time I was really using the Honolulu sketchbook. I'll link that in the card above if you want to check out that. This skull is my favorite thing on these spreads. I had a lot of fun with that, and that'll lead into a page in just a couple turns from now. This one was done, it's not quite as polished. I know there's some funky angles on it, but I was at a show. It was actually the last show I ever did before I decided to stop doing shows. And it was a really slow show. I had a lot of time. I was still not on a flat surface, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where some of the anatomical issues come in. But I was playing the Jurassic World Alive game on your phone. It's like Pokemon Go, but with dinosaurs. It's awesome. And one of the dinosaurs that they have in there is a T-Rex with this like tiger striping. I thought it was pretty cool, so I painted that. And here is what I was alluding to before. After I did the Parasaurolophus skull, I really wanted to do some skull studies, and this actually took quite a while to do. I did some of them I did like these two at the same time, and then I think I did these two around the same time, and then I did this page way later. That's another thing with the sketchbook. It doesn't go in chronological order. I jump around a lot, so if I have dates, I'll let you know, but all of them were done in that year span. I did have one cover up here. I tried not to do a whole lot of that in this sketchbook, but I really messed up the muntjac skull, and it made me so upset to look at it that I just decided I should put a little sheet of paper over it. So I just redid the skull, added it, and had fun. But that being said, I think my favorite skull on this page is actually the springbok. I really like the contrast of the horn sheaths on there. And it was also fun doing the rhino structure here because their whole horn wasn't included. So I thought that was really interesting as well. The Pygmy Hippo has kind of a sentimental place in my heart. It's one of the skulls that I used to teach with when we did like dietary classes at the zoo, and it was always fun to talk about because they've got these huge front teeth, but they're actually herbivores. So we talked about like why an animal would need teeth like that if they're not tearing apart meat. I don't know why the string is at this particular location in the sketchbook, but this is one of the last pages I did. It was a meerkat study just not too long ago. I did this at a craft night here in Austin with some friends of a friend, and it was really fun just to do just some light sketches off of pictures I had taken before. You might also remember this picture from the channel. This was the first day of World Watercolor Month last year. So I painted this fuchsia, and I did have to record it a couple days early because if you guys remember, I was taking a trip to Mexico, which are the next couple of pages. So this is a sketch that I was never super happy with. It's very, very green. I'm afraid I'm gonna rock the table if I flip this around, but it was this iguana. It was the first wild iguana I've ever seen. I'm trying to say words too quickly here. But it was in the grass outside the hotel, and he was just chilling. It's pretty cool to see. And then I also got to see a fair number of these whistling ducks, which was really cool. I've worked with whistling ducks in the past, but these are different species, but it was really fun to see them just out in the wild. They make a really interesting call that's a really pretty sound, and I just think they have really cute faces. While I was in Mexico, it was just before I knew I was going to have to come back and do a painting for the Animal Artists Collective, and this is the pre-work that I did when studying for the opossum painting that you might remember from last year. You're going to see that reoccurring in this sketchbook a fair amount. I have several AAC sketch pieces here. My favorite ones on this page are actually the feet, particularly this back foot here. So this is the underside of an opossum's back foot, and you can see they have an opposable thumb. They've got these really cushy little pads that are really soft in person. And I did some baby opossums on this page. My original idea for this piece was to do like a mother opossum and then a bunch of babies, but given that I was traveling, I was like, you know, this is a really ambitious piece, and my heart kind of lied in with doing this portrait based on a picture that I took of my favorite opossum I've ever worked with. I've worked with a lot of opossums. Unfortunately, they don't have a long lifespan, so I got to meet many in my days at the zoo, but this is the one I was most attached to, and you can see a larger thumbnail painting that I did of her here before I worked on the final piece. I did send a print to the wildlife center we got her from after I got back and finished the piece and everything, and I was glad to be able to do that. I'm pretty sure I did this spread after I got home from Mexico, but I used pictures that I took there. These were some more iguanas that we saw, specifically on a boating trip that we went on. I really liked this big guy with the colors that he had, and then I really like the dinosaur feel of this guy over here, and I like the value a lot in this study. Next is a spread of gouache chicken. So this is the hybrid gouache. So this is the Mission White class. You're gonna notice on some of these, the blacks and dark colors are shiny, which I don't love about this brand, but everything else I really, really enjoy about them. My favorite sketch on this page is this white chicken, although there's a little bit of black paint from this girl over here, but I just really had fun with the colors and the textures. I really like some of like the suggestions of feathers on this buff chicken, and then I did some of our baby chickens over here, as well as this type of chicken is called an Australorp. So I just wanted to play with a wide range of colors and values and paint one of my favorite animals because I do love chickens. Next up, we have another spread. These were done at pretty different times, if I remember correctly. These are the whistling ducks I mentioned earlier. These are ones, this is the species that I got to work with at the zoo, but these three were from a picture that I took when I was in Botswana, which was super exciting to see the exact species that I had worked with. They're called white-faced whistling ducks, and I just love their faces. They're so cute. And then I also did these koalas fairly recently, I guess halfway through this sketchbook when I went to visit my sister in Denver last year. So this was with the Nila Kalori watercolors. I was using the indigo and the Vivinite, and it was a lot of fun to do. This little grumpy guy in particular was a favorite, I think, on Instagram, but I like this one's expression too. This is probably the most lackluster spread in the entire book, at least in my opinion. I was working on some aardvark studies, but they went unfinished for a grand part of the year. I eventually came back to them and just finished them up before I deemed myself complete with this sketchbook, but nothing too fancy there. Then this was another Patreon tutorial. It was of a black horse. Some people wanted to have some guidance on how to do blacks. There's a lot of blue in here, a lot of brown. All right, maybe I lied about the aardvark before. This might be the most lackluster page in this sketchbook. This was planning for the AAC video. I really wanted to do pangolins for this theme, and there aren't a ton of great reference photos of pangolins. So I was playing around with a lot of different scenes. I ended up going with like a collage style tattered sketchbook page. Then we've got the Cheetah Spread. This was a collaboration with Hajra's channel. We did a collaboration where we both used our own zoo photos to do a sketchbook spread. So I had a ton of fun with this one. This is definitely my favorite on the page. I just love the expression, the color of the eyes in contrast with the rest of the body, and it was a lot of fun to work on. You might recognize this side from the Let's Learn series. This is when I was doing the peaches using different types of white and seeing kind of how that affected the paint. So this is using zinc white, this was using titanium white, and then this was using white first and then doing the shadows on top of it, which make it a little bit more muddy, so to speak. I wanted this side to match, but this was done way later, like last week later. I just wanted to kind of fill the page with something similar. I kind of like how the pear and the lemon turned out. I don't like how the apple turned out. I was talking to my patrons about this one and how it's really, really difficult to get like a lighter red color because when you add white to the red, they turn pink. So I definitely have some more work to do on that. This was more from that Let's Learn series. So we did the strawberries in different styles based on the Skillshare class that I was taking. This I don't think I showed you in that video. This was going to be the full gouache piece that I showed off, but I got really frustrated halfway through. Looking back at it, it doesn't look that bad as a foundation, and I probably could have finished it, but I was just really, really frustrated with it. So instead, I did these rhinos, which I love how they turned out. It was really fun to work with these darker earth tones, and I just really enjoyed that. That was back in November of 2018. This is the last page that I finished in my sketchbook. This was just the other day. Once again, for my patrons, we did a live stream, and again, I was trying to complement what was on this side of the sketchbook, so we did an elephant on this side. I was a little hesitant to do one. I historically have not been able to do elephants very well, paint elephants very well, so it was a good practice, and I think it turned out nice as a rough study, but it did take a really long time, and I could have used a lot more refinement. These were more Denver pieces, so when I mentioned like I didn't go in chronological order, this was the flight to Denver, this was in Denver, this was coming home from Denver. I just kind of would open up to the pages that I felt worked in the space I was working on. In an airplane, obviously, you don't have a lot of space to work with, so you have to use certain sides of your sketchbook if they don't fold back on themselves. So you might remember this one. I showed it off on my Instagram, and I believe Yeah, he's in my shop. So I worked on this bison, and this was kind of like the moment that I realized I liked the opaque Winsor Newton specialty colors, the limited edition colors. This was one of like their, I don't remember what it's called. It's like dark brown, something really generic. And then there was like a gold ochre. And it was the first time that I both appreciated opaque paints and then Winsor Newton paints for this particular limited color. There are a lot of things wrong with this sketch. The nose is definitely too like snub-nosed. It should have come out further. I definitely want to work on this type of angle again so I can fine-tune it a little bit more, but I was happy with the nose and the eye studies over here. If you're wondering what this black line on these 2 pages was, is that I thought I was going to end up redoing the Let's Learn pages, or maybe I thought I was labeling this page or something like that. But I ended up not using it for that, but then it said Let's Learn Gouache on it. So I just blacked it out with Sharpie, but then it bled through. So I blacked it out on the other side. That's all. The next spread is a little bit of a hodgepodge. I worked on this piece first. This was a dodo sketch, again, for my patrons. I use the sketchbook a lot for my Patreon live streams and tutorials. Someone wanted to see a dodo bird. It was really fun. This was actually right before the extinct animal AAC piece too, so it was fun to explore that. Use some purples and grays. I think this was the Senneliers that I was using. And then it was kind of an awkward size. It didn't quite fill up the whole page, so I ended up doing another skeletal study here that I didn't have enough room for, but I like how the skull in particular turned out. I did this lilac-breasted roller on the plane, a plane somewhere. I don't know, I traveled a lot this past year between trips and then getting ready for this move. So the tail got messed up, which I don't love. So if we just ignore that, the rest of it's fine. And then the rest of the page was blank, so I needed to fill that in. And if you watched the vlog, you might have seen me work on this piece when Jacqueline was here a couple weeks ago. I figured I could do another colorful bird, and the Carmine Bee Eater isn't related to the lilac-breasted roller, but they have really similar color schemes, so that's what I went with. This next spread makes me super happy. This is when I went to the zoo that I used to work at with Jennifer Charlie and Hajar Meeks. We went in January of this past year. I wish we had gotten another time to go together to a zoo, but it was really special to me because we were taking a break. We were waiting for one of the zookeepers to show us something special, and we were sitting out by the petting zoo area where they have all the goats, and it was the first time I've ever drawn animals from life like intentionally. I've gone to the zoo before and done like little sketches that didn't really turn out, but I actually love how these turned out. I thought it was really freeing and fun. I particularly like this little guy here, and it gave me a lot of confidence to try this type of thing again, which you'll see in a little bit. This page is some fuchsia sketches. These weren't done at the zoo, but we went to coffee after we had looked around the zoo for a while. So I think I did all these in the coffee shop, pretty sure. This is my favorite one. I love that profile, just showing off some different poses that the fuchsia can do. And then I also worked on this Macaw Spread as well. This is my favorite one. I really like the pose of the mouth. Kind of surprised me. I've never done anything like that before. This one obviously is not as good. And then try to work a little bit on my wings. I know I'm very behind in that regard. I need to spend some more time with wing anatomy. And then because I was so inspired by this trip to paint live animals and didn't have a ton of opportunity, I actually went on YouTube and searched for live farm streams. So I found one with some cows. So I watched a video, sketched some cows from it. Nothing too fancy there. And then I did the same thing with chickens. So I did the sketch, I threw some light watercolor washes on them, and then I put some ink work over them just to finish them off a bit. This was a spread that I did on my way to St. Louis when I was visiting my friend Beth out there. I don't love the golden eagle, but I really like how the bald eagle turned out, and this little owl down here is so cute. Then thematically, we kind of have a couple more spreads of birds. This was on the same flight where I did a flamingo and some crowned cranes. I drew these with like a reddish pink pencil. That's why you can see so much of the pink blending through. This one was done quite a ways after. These were done from the Mayfield Park here in Austin when I visited back in April. Not super detailed, but just finished the page opposite of the other birds. This one is cool, and I don't think I've shared it with anyone here on YouTube. You might have seen it on Instagram, or you've definitely seen it if you're a patron. I did this painting upside down, and it was a cool lesson. We did a monochromatic study where we just looked at values and we flipped the image upside down so that we could really look at where those things went rather than relying on what our brain thinks it looks like. When you flip it back around, it looks mostly okay. There's a couple areas, including the eyes, that I'm not super thrilled with, but for the most part, I think it was pretty successful in demonstrating the purpose of that activity. These are some ibex using water-soluble graphite and the Art Graph blocks, which if you've seen Steve and Tio's videos here on YouTube, they've done a couple recently explaining that they're not really graphite. They seem just to be pigment blocks, but it was fun nonetheless. So these two are probably what you've seen most recently on Instagram for the most part, and you would have seen them in the vlog as well. These were two of the first sketches I worked on here in Austin when I went to a coffee shop just to hang out for a little bit. I really liked the way the chimp turned out, and this species is just really cool. It's a critically endangered lemur species called a blue-eyed black lemur. I know this isn't black, that's a female. The species is named after the males, which are black, so they have this really interesting dimorphism. These were actually done before the other two. I did them on the flight to Austin in April when I was looking at apartments, and then I finished them up later. I don't remember how much longer later, but it was a ways later that I worked on these and polished them up. I think maybe it was on the flight home, because this definitely is a textural thing from a water brush, so probably worked on it on the flight back. This page really isn't too, we don't need to spend too much time here. These are water-soluble graphite studies of human features, of course, which I desperately need some work on. This was a really casual sketch. I was literally eating at the same time that I was doing it, so it's one of the least polished pages in the book, but it was just some fun little watercolor splashes. And then I had a lot of fun working on this here in the studio once I got set up. I wanted to do some different bird species here in Austin that I've seen so far. So we have mourning doves here. Northern mockingbirds are new for me. We don't have those in California, at least not where I lived. And then I have both the male common grackle and the female great-tailed grackle. So it was fun to do that. I love all the colors in this guy. We're almost there, you guys. We're almost to the end. This is another one you might have seen in the vlog. It was a tapir study. You guys might be able to piece together what it's for. It was practicing, exploring. You've seen it before in the sketchbook for what's to come. But it was fun just to kind of explore this really interesting creature. And then I had this Nyala study of a male and female Nyala, once again a patron stream, and I think that's about it. There's a couple pages of swatches back here. This is the Winsor & Newton palette. I think I swatched this out when I was visiting my sister. And then this very back page, this is actually the first thing I did in this because I wanted to see how the paper would react. So it's just a test page of different types of paint, that kind of thing. I do love that this sketchbook has paintable paper on the covers. I know I didn't utilize that in the front, and maybe I'll go back and work on that, but I do like how crisp it looks. So do be sure to let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite sketches were from this sketchbook, but it's time for us to set up a new sketchbook for World Watercolor Month. I have two sketchbooks to choose from, and it's a hard choice because I really like them both. This is identical to the one I was just using. This is the one I was using before that, but I kind of had to let my challenge that I'm doing for World Watercolor Month decide which one I'm using. We has a cat that has joined us. You're gonna see her tail flicking there. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, World Watercolor Month does have a prompt list, but it's mostly about celebrating what works for you and how much you love watercolor. So you certainly don't have to use that prompt list if you don't want to, and I thought a lot about it. The last 2 years I've used the prompt list to come up with kind of workarounds for animals that related to those ties, even though they're not specifically animal related. But this year I wanted to do something different. It was really important to me to set goals for this year since I am doing the full 31-day challenge, and I really identified that I want to work on my creativity as well as my time management because I'm a very slow painter. So I tried to think what would work for me and what would keep me really excited to keep going throughout the challenge, and I've really enjoyed doing the couple of creature designs that I've done so far. The concept of creature design, of course, isn't unique to YouTube, but Dina Norland is a really wonderful artist who is pretty well known here on YouTube for doing those. She usually does 3 at a time, and it's a little bit more of a challenge to put in the 3, but if I'm going to be doing these every day for 31 days, I decided to limit myself just to 2 so I can stay sane. So I'll go ahead and put that list up on the screen for you guys to see. It's posted over on Instagram and as a free post on my Patreon. So I came up with this list mostly for myself, but I would love to see what you come up with if you want to join in as well. One of the coolest things about creature designs is there's so many different directions you can take it, and being able to see multiple people approach the same 2 animals is really fascinating to me. So because I'm going to be doing kind of compilation sketches, exploring a few different ideas at once, and then putting a watercolor on my finished design, I think I need to go with the landscape sketchbook just so I have more room to explore those ideas. First and foremost, remember if you are uploading any watercolor paintings to social media in the month of July, make sure to use the hashtag World Watercolor Month. And if you'd like to do the creature design in addition to that tag, you can also add WWM creature design so that I can find those a little bit easier. Don't forget that you can get limited edition merch in the World Watercolor Month shop, and all proceeds go to the Dreaming Zebra Foundation to support kids in need of art supplies. I hope you have a wonderful World Watercolor Month in July, lots of time creating, and I will see you soon as we get back to our brand by brand and color spotlight series. Until next time, happy painting. Are kittens supposed to be on the table? I don't think they are.